Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Pretty Aggressive. My name is Julia. I run Pretty Aggressive Recovery Coaching. I help people who have been raised with intergenerational abuse, abusive parenting, toxic parenting, low nurturing, or poorly bonded parenting. And I help people learn how to thrive in this life because simply surviving is bullshit. Today's episode I am so excited about. Happy Father's Day! What are we going to talk about? Daddy issues. So I want to start with kind of halfway through, I'm going to be telling my own story because the reason I'm so excited about this topic particularly is because it's been part of my recovery journey. And I was granted through life circumstances a great opportunity on probably the healthiest way to recover from daddy issues that I'm very thankful for. And even if people don't have those same opportunities, I'm going to offer some tools and tips on how to possibly accomplish that in their own lives. So yes, of course, I have struggled from daddy issues, and I am happily recovered and have a great relationship with my dad now, and have great relationships with men in romantic sexual relationships. Just one right now, but none of your business. Anyway, so let's go over what daddy issues are. Now, they're often used to refer to how we go about minimizing women's attachment needs. Usually they're culturally repressed sexual preferences and emotional desires. And this would cover things like women who put out too early, or women who date much older men, or women who either enjoy or explore rough bedroom play, and even women who have high libidos that are mistaken for toxic promiscuity. These are kind of all the bullshit things that we try to rope into daddy issues, when really a lot of those things there's nothing wrong with. Those are women's free sexual preferences and their behaviors. Sometimes they come from a toxic place, sometimes they don't. Sometimes that's just what they like, and leave them alone. That's their right. There's nothing wrong with it. Where daddy issues actually come from, what they're truly referencing, are actually the issues women have in unhealthy attachment styles due to the lack of a dependable male role model in their childhood. So in adulthood, this starts to look like becoming overly obsessed in or overly invested too soon in relationships, chasing unhealthy partners because they don't know what a healthy partnership looks like, using sex as, or sexuality or desirability as power moves, both in professional and personal settings, and usually seeking attention and gain, trying to earn relationships, whether they be professional or personal, through the use of their sexuality or desirability level. And we'll talk about that a bit more in a second. So, give you more background on this. Without secure and consistent parental figures of either gender in our life or in a child's life, weird shit turns up in our adult behavior. Sorry to drop the bomb on you. If you hadn't come across that somewhere in your reading, I'm just laying it out there. If you don't have secure and consistent parental figures of either gender or both genders in your life as a child, you turn out weird later. Weird being a loose term. It's not in the medical dictionary somewhere. Might be? Haven't looked. Don't think so. Anyway, so we've actually seen this throughout written history, and all history, however it's presented, everything from the Bible to Shakespeare, all the way into the studies of Freud, which we'll go over in just a sec, that when you have a certain role model of a certain gender, let's focus on daughters with fathers, when the father figure is either inconsistent or toxic or unhealthy or screwed up, you wind up having a daughter come into womanhood with a malfunction wiring on what type of romantic sexual partner is healthy, or how to function in a relationship like that, or how to even find a good, healthy male partner for themselves, or to have healthy relationships with men at all. in platonic circumstances, because it all becomes based on gaining attention for something else we'll talk about later about what the needs are that are not being met. So women with daddy issues go through their adult lives seeking male attention in toxic ways because they haven't experienced what it's like to have a healthy, consistent, secure relationship with a male, whether it be their brothers or their fathers or cousins or simply people who are not interested in them sexually. So Freud, in his studies, I use some of Freud's work. Some of it's very insightful. Some of it's been discredited. Whatever, let's leave that alone. But his concepts on what's more widely known is his concept about how young boys who grow into men start seeking relationships with women that remind them or are similar to their mothers, either consciously or subconsciously. So this is called the Oedipus complex. Now, the opposite to that is what we'll be talking about is the Electra complex, which is where women either consciously or subconsciously seek out a male romantic partner, romantic sexual partner who are similar to their fathers. Now, I know it sounds twisted if you haven't heard of this before, but it's actually not. It's literally our brain finding familiarity and therefore comfort in another person's behavioral patterns. So whether your father was an academic or quiet or loud or had rage issues or whatever, you're most likely going to go seek that either consciously or subconsciously, whether you see lots of good in them, but their bad behaviors or their negative flaws reflect similarities to your father, or you attempt to go to the opposite. It's an influence. We're trying to find comfort and familiarity in the patterns of the people we keep close to us. It's very normal. Now, if you had an absent father, or an absentee father or father figure, or none at all, where do you get your example? Where do you see your patterns? Where do you develop a familiarity? You don't. So if you had an absentee or an abusive father figure while you were growing up, what do you think is going to happen? You're not going to turn out with a good blueprint of what a healthy relationship with a male romantic or sexual partner should look like if you don't already have a framework with a platonic males in your life or male relationship. So now what our human relationships, what our connections are actually meant for is to help us develop a sense of significance, worth, and value. They're not and should not be the only factor. That's what's screwed up with social media and people's obsession with being seen and having social media determine their worth as a person. But it plays a huge role. That's why people do it. That's why they're addicted to it. So directly relating this to our topic, when women search for a male sexual romantic partner, we are seeking someone who provides these three things: significance, worth, and value. And when we have no prior example of this in a healthy way, we seek it in fucked up ways. Now, when we go from moving from prepubescent into puberty, young women learn that we can gain or earn feelings of significance, worth, and value through the use of our sexuality. A lot of women also learn the opposite of this, that without it, they don't feel significance, worth, or value in society if you don't have sex appeal or if you don't have the power of sex behind you. Because every man, we assume, is seeking that in us if they are not our brothers, fathers, cousins, grandfathers, if they're not a biological relative. So this is actually bullshit. It's total and utter bullshit. Those three things, significance, value, and worth, are not meant to be earned. They are built, and we build them ourselves from within and through our actions and positive relationships that we participate in our own lives. We do not earn or gain true significance, worth, or value using our sex appeal, our beauty, or based on our level of desirability. That's not true. It's bullshit. So, if women are seeking significance, worth, and value either in professional circumstances or personal circumstances, and they're using their sex appeal to get it, it's because somewhere along the line, they've been taught, or they've been, through example, intrinsically or explicitly shown, subconsciously or consciously, whatever, that's where their worth comes from. If they are an adequate or desirable sexual partner, or if they have beauty, that's where value, worth, and significance comes from in this world for them. And what's lacking, what causes that, is not having any male figure or father figure or male role models in their lives, or male relationships that aren't based on that in a healthy way. And the only places those come from are men who are biologically not in a position to have a relationship based on that. And this would be fathers, grandfathers, brothers, cousins, or people out of an appropriate age range that are showing us that we have worth outside of our sex appeal or our role as a birthing sow or a sex object. Now, so to share my story, I absolutely went through this entire process. As a young girl, my father's love language was providing service. So he was up early in the morning before we were up for school. He was gone to work. He was away at work all day. He would come home, help my mom cook dinner, sit at the table quietly after a really long, hard day at work, and then rest on the couch, have half a beer and fall asleep there, or put himself to bed at 9 or 9:30 to be up again at 5 a.m. And on the weekends, he involved himself in providing more service for the family. He worked on the house and the yard and the cars and ran errands. And even when I was in situations with him where we were alone in a car for an hour because he was driving me to and from either a soccer game or soccer practice or hockey, we could sit in a car for a full hour and not talk. There was nothing for us to connect on. So moving through puberty and into my adolescence, I wanted male attention. My brothers hated me, so they spent no time with me. They were not interested. But this lack of platonic male attention heightened my drive to have male attention from somewhere. And I was learning through social example and cultural norms that the only way to get it was through my sexual worth or my desirability. So yes, I went through a number of daddy issue behaviors all the way up into my early 20s. Now, what changed? During my early 20s, I had a very unique opportunity where my father was a bit sick, a bit ill, and the pressure to reach out to him and spend more time with him became imminent. It became very present. So as I reached out to him and began fostering our relationship to make sure he was okay, to connect with him, our relationship started to build. And through that relationship, I learned either implicitly or subconsciously, and also later it became very present consciously, that I was spending time with a man who was giving me attention with no ulterior motives. He was interested in my life and who I was as a person and what I was doing with my time and what my interests were, with nothing needed to go on after. He was simply my father. He was simply a relative. He was simply someone who wanted to share space and time because I was part of his life. And this is something that builds our understanding of our significance, our worth, and our value in this world, is to share relationships and build relationships with people who don't want anything from us. They're not seeking anything from us. They literally just value us as a person. And to participate in more and more relationships like that is how we begin to understand that for ourselves, is how we begin to believe that in ourselves. So I noticed a few years into building a relationship with my father that my behavior in my sexual romantic relationships with men became healthier, that I had stronger boundaries, that I wasn't willing to be treated certain ways, that I wouldn't tolerate certain behavior in a relationship with a man. And it came from my knowledge that I had someone else who would never treat me that way, no matter what I was or wasn't giving them. That I had worth and significance and value beyond just being a romantic sexual partner. That I had worth as a person to other people, and specifically a male, specifically to men in my life. And it also happened when I started to develop a relationship with my brother in adulthood, that I knew it was possible. I knew that there were men out there who would treat me well regardless of what I was bringing to the table for them. And it changed my professional life, it changed my personal life, and it changed my level of self-respect. Now, an opportunity like that isn't available to all women, especially if your father was excessively toxic or abusive, or you don't know where he is, or he's not alive anymore. But what I would recommend is, through using smart skills and strong boundaries and cultural or community placement, find opportunities to be developing relationships with men who are either outside of the biological age range that's appropriate for you to have a romantic sexual relationship with, or only in community settings that allow you to have interactions with them where you're able to build a relationship with male father figure role models or brother sister type role models or relationships that show you that you can have relationships with men that are not based on your sex appeal, that are not based on your desirability, that are not based on them wanting something from you, and you only gaining attention if you give it to them, or if that you might give it to them. That's where that blueprint and that framework of our understanding that those relationships exist, that they are possible. And you need to start positioning yourself in relationships where that can happen. And it needs to come from them. You can't provoke a relationship into a male understanding that you're not going to have sex with them, or that you're not going to be sexually appealing towards them. That wrecks it. It ruins it. That becomes you the holder of power. You want it in a place where it's symbiotic, where it's interdependent. And you will be able to start understanding that you have worth, value, and significance in this world, regardless of your sex appeal, of what you're bringing to the table, just as a person. And you need to have men in your life that show you that's possible. It will change your life. So again, my name is Julia. You can find me at Pretty Aggressive on Facebook. I have a full YouTube channel at Pretty Aggressive. On Instagram, you can find me at prettyaggressive_official. And also, if you are a male with a toxic mother bond or a female with a toxic mother bond, check out my book, Beyond Damage, Aggressive Recovery from the Toxic Mother-Daughter Bond. And I am here in a hotel because I'm actually on a writing break working on my second book that will be titled I Hate Yoga and should be published within a couple months, hopefully. So you can find my book my current book, Beyond Damage, on amazon.com.ca and all the other Amazon dots. And you can find me at prettyaggressive.net. Like this video, share this video. If you know someone with daddy issues, help them out. Do a share. All right. Thanks a lot, and happy Father's Day.